Hey everyone, welcome to Malleus Gaming. I'm your host Malleus, and today we're going to be delving into the lore of Warhammer Fantasy and a potential legendary hero for the upcoming Shadows of Change DLC for Total War Warhammer 3. This new hero is described as a frontline fighter twisted by the Lord of Change, and I, like many others, believe it to be none other than the Tzeentchian champion, Aekold Helbrass. A highly skilled warrior devoted to the Changer of Ways, Helbrass became the bearer of a particularly unique gift, known as the Breath of Life. With the ability to bring about unchecked and disturbingly rapid growth of new life around him, Aekold's touch is as indiscriminate as it is potent. Now, let's learn some more about this mysterious champion of chaos. Helbrass began his life as a noble in Altdorf, the capital city of the Empire province of Reichland. In his youth, Aekold became a knight of the Order of the Jade Griffin, but grew disillusioned with the teachings of his order and Sigmar. Desperate to bring lasting change for the betterment of mankind, Aekold joined a secretive cult known as the Brethren of the Golden Eagle, quickly rising within their ranks. However, he was forced to flee the Empire when the cult was revealed to be Chaos worshippers by the Sigmarite witch hunters. Wandering north through Troll Country and the Chaos Wastes, Aekold fought tainted creatures and eventually came across a Chaos altar. Before this altar, Aekold was forced to fight a mirror image of his younger self. He defeated his double, but was mortally wounded in the process. Staggering through a gateway upon the altar, Aekold Helbrass was reborn as a champion of Tzeentch, having now found his true purpose and destiny. Aekold Helbrass has a minor appearance in the Gotrek Felix Novel Kinslayer by David Guymer. Given the inclusion of Kislev in the Shadows of Change DLC, and the recent release of Ulrika Magdova as a free legendary hero, I found the following excerpts to be quite fitting. Not only do they potentially tie in with a possible story for Shadows of Change, but they wonderfully showcase Aekold Helbrass's true power over life and the warping touch of chaos. If you want to avoid any potential spoilers for Kinslayer, best turn back now. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy. Kislev was alive, and it had become a land of surpassing beauty. Gone were the fields of grain and barley, their monotony of color and form. Gone, too, were the men that had grown them, the livestock they had fed, the vermin they had harbored. In their place had come life. Mile upon infinitely diverse mile of beastmen, marauders, and chaos warriors clambered upon the falling snow. Armor of every type, flesh of every hue, horns, hooves, tentacles, claws, every twisted possibility of creation was here, and here for battle. The roar from so many divergent varieties of throat was all-consumptive, a thunderous outpouring of adulation to their champions and their gods. The sound of one name rose above all others. He was the Conqueror of Kislev. Helbrass! Where the bare opal-colored flesh of his feet fell, the snow melted and birthed flowers. The very air around him crackled with an aurora of changeling energy. It fizzed and popped, spontaneous generation summoning iridescent dragonflies that hummed ahead of his path like evangelists to a new order. His plate armor met the color shift of the auric bastion with a rainbow iridescence of possibilities. Through the eye slits of his helm, he studied the edifice's artificial wrongness. It It was a barrier, and life suffered no barrier. Life would dig, it would bore, it would learn how to fly. And however distant its bars, Aekold Helbrass would not exist within a cage. He had broken free of the Troll King. He would break this.
Helbrass,
Moaned the sorceress as if pleasured by the mere sound of her voice.
I have claimed this part of the wall for my own. When it falls, it shall be the name of Porphyry that they sing, Conqueror of the Palace of Flesh, survivor of the Trial of 12 Pleasures, defiler of the Flower of Kislev.
Extending a hand, she planted it flat against the sheer stone of the auric bastion, and produced a smile that could have corrupted a dead man. I stand corrected, Helbrass bowed. It is yours. Porphyry laughed, then suddenly cried out as a spasmodic wave racked her body. The life-giving power of change crackled through her. Her thighs bulged and pushed her feet into the earth. Knots formed in her perfect flesh as it hardened, cracked, and birthed new life in the form of buds and flowers. Her mouth opened to scream, but rather than a human voice there emerged a green shoot that, as if drawn by some sustenance other than sunlight, whipped into the auric bastion with a great splintering of stone. Porphyry gave one last moan as the last plates of chaos armor were pushed aside, and more questing shoots forced their way through. Life was emergent. The humblest fungus would tunnel through the mightiest wall, for food, for shelter, and often for the simple imperative of expansion. It was better to blossom as the flower of chaos than to toil in the cages of Prague. He could not defeat the Troll King, but he had escaped him, smashed the Ice Queen, tore down her Ogham stones, and gifted every magician that his former captor craved an invigorative new form. Porphyry gave a zoetic pulse, a push of labor that thrust squirming hyphae into the wall. Rock groaned, and then the auric bastion began to split. Helbrass drew his weapon, the two-handed broadsword named Windblade. The cracks rose higher, and so did the pitch of his laughter. Let there be life. Aekold Helbrass strode through the embattled ranks of the Chaos Horde. He was one in a vast shoal, but where he walked men and beasts were healed and the risen dead reduced to rose-choked cairns of composted earth. A mighty phalanx of zombies and their immortal puppet lords, tall warriors in archaic plate and chill blades, blocked his path. Kurgan berserkers hacked at rotting flesh. Chaos warriors crackling with the accumulated blessings of their gods fought toe-to-toe with kings long departed when Sigmar had walked the Empire. Helbrass flourished the Windblade, and the broadsword was life's scythe. Skeletons collapsed rather than near its edge. Zombies dissolved into glorious bounties of maggots and flies at a glance. A white lord, proclaiming himself Etheltan of the Tutagens, cut down the Chaos Warrior that opposed him, and, voice as the gasp of air from a tomb unsealed, challenged Helbrass to single combat. The Shade was old and angry, and strong enough in his own will to raise his sword before decay and rebirth caused his body to shrivel, his armor to corrode, and his blade to bleed iron dust. Helbrass trod on the ancient's funerary shroud and strode on, white flowers bursting from the white's remains to complete the cycle of life. There was nothing special about death. The simplest primordial slime that eked an existence from the ocean's bottom could die. A rock or a gust of wind could take a life. That event most beautiful to the Changer was thus the transition from dead matter into life. Already Helbrass could picture the Troll King's wrath. His laughter was a hammer that smote zombies and ghouls into ash to line his path. He fixed his gaze on the sorcerers upon the three sisters. Only the Kislevite village stood in his path, but that would not hold him for long. He would bring life to a dead land. There was nothing here that could stop him. She would have known him had she been staked through the heart and left for the sunrise with a silver blindfold. Aekold Helbrass, the Conqueror of Kislev and Prague. Apart from his hands and feet that were as green as new shoots, he was clad in a suit of plate armor that shifted constantly in color like oil on water. Nothing in his physical stature shouted champion. He was neither especially tall nor powerful in appearance, but looking at him was like staring too long at the sun. Feeling her cheeks beginning to moisten, Ulrika blinked, looked away, and wiped red tears from her eyes. Helbrass was life. Violent, explosive, untempered life. And just looking upon him made her eyes bleed. Blind to the fires burning all around, she started towards him. She wanted to rend him apart for what he had done to her homeland, and she wished to test just how far Felix would go to protect her. But really her need surpassed and transcended all logical considerations. She was a moth to the flame. She had pulled away from Felix and drawn her saber when she heard a rumble of hoofbeats, and an armored knight on a ghostly white charger burst through the cloud. He wore heavy black armor, molded plates accoutred with rubies and bronze-fretted embossings of snarling bats. A jeweled broadsword was in his be-ringed hand, and it had clearly tasted blood in getting its bearer here. His skin carried an unearthly pallor, and a white stream of hair ran out in his wake. Blood called the blood. It was her master. Aekold Helbrass turned and readied his blade, but made no move to step out of the way. There was something mocking in the shift of patterns across his helm. Rock shouted at Ulrika to run. Then he struck Helbrass's life-giving aura, the power of an ancient bloodline meeting the vigorous, carefree exuberance of change. The wards upon the Commandant's armor blazed a thick black, smoke venting from the joins as his skin sizzled. Calling on the restorative power of his blood, he howled fresh agony as burned flesh was healed and then incinerated anew. With willpower alone, he lifted his sword and urged his horse on, but the magic that bound the undead beast did not have the power of the ancient curse that bestowed unlife upon its rider. Like vapor from a blacksmith's cooling bucket, the horse evaporated, hurling Rock's armored bulk to the ground. "You would challenge me?" It was the first time Ulrika had heard Helbrass speak, and his voice was like the light that lanced through a cloudy sky. She reeled from it, but stronger, older, Rock rose and smashed his sword against Helbrass's. The champion parried, countered. Rock received and returned. The champion was quick, but the vampire lord was quicker, unleashing a storm of blows that even Ulrika did not believe she could match for speed or steel-rending power. Helbrass defended himself with almost equal speed and no little skill, but Rock left no opening for an attack. Until he started to slow down. The effect was so slight at first that Ulrika did not even notice, but then Rock coughed, splattering blood over Helbrass's visor, and dropped to his knees with his hand upon his heart. Ulrika watched with mounting fury as her master's pectoral plate buckled and gave before his swelling chest. The Arisen crossed his arms over his breast and roared defiance. A nauseating ripple passed out from his brow as Helbrass placed a hand upon his head. Flames flicked across his gums, his chest continued to heave, and just as it looked as though his body could stretch no further, He emitted a scream and burst apart into a screeching cloud of bats. Chuckling, the champion of chaos strode through their flapping wings and leveled his sword. Ulrika unconsciously took a backward step, but then checked herself and brought up her own blade to match. She felt the roar of her beast as the bars of its cage grew brittle. There was no escape from here, even if she wished it. And she did not. This was something that she and Felix would have to face together. Thank you all so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd like to give a big special thanks to my friend Skylit Bloom for the extra voice work. You can find her on Twitch at twitch.tv/SkylitBloom, and I'll post her link in the description below. If you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends, as it will really help out the channel. If you have any feedback, or if there are any particular topics you'd like to see covered, let me know in the comments. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!